How is it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Between Two Cars. One of them is definitely a lot taller than, the last time you guys saw it. That's because it is up on my lift right now because I pulled the whole rear end and I sent it out to get re-geared. And that brings us to today's topic. Are you a little B-word if you don't work on your own car? Are you a female dog if you don't work on your own car? Let's answer that. Now, I have had cars worked on by shops. I have had cars worked on by good shops, bad shops, mid shops. I've worked on my own car. I've done good on my car and I've done bad on my car. I'm a man. I'm not perfect. I'll admit it. But a lot of people in the car scene call you a pussy if you don't work on your own car. But why? Why would they say that? Why? You're still getting the same results. You're still having these parts installed. You're just paying someone else and you're just promoting a little good economy. So why would they give a shit if you do it to your own car or not? We're going to talk about that. Now, early on, a lot of people used to get upset with me because certain things I would pay to have done. Very early on with this car, I had a Pro Charger kit installed. I didn't know how to install a Pro Charger kit. I didn't even have anything more than a Craftsman toolbox with a basic ratchet set. Why am I going to tackle a very important job that requires hundreds of dollars in tools that I don't have? So early on, I didn't do that. I didn't install the fuel system on this car. I did install a transmission on this car with a new clutch and everything. I was able to do that. And I made do with what I had, and it worked out, but certain things I didn't do, and I got a lot of flack early on for that. And then when it came to the Supra, early on, I didn't do a lot of the work. I didn't do the initial engine swap. I didn't do the turbo kit. I didn't do that fuel system either. I didn't know what I was doing. It was a whole new platform. I got in within a month, the engine was ripped out. And that's not enough time to learn a whole engine system and become confident in yourself to go ahead and tear it apart and put it back together correctly. It was a whole new animal for me. But over the years, now I pull engines myself. I tear apart stuff myself. I install superchargers myself. The same blower that I did not install on this car, the 3-liter Whipple, Brian and I installed it on his car flawlessly. We installed it in the driveway. We didn't even put it on a lift. We put it on jack stands and installed it. See it, like you could learn over the time. But anyways, let's get into it. So, like I was saying early on, I used to get a lot of flack for that. And I would always defend myself by saying, oh, well, I installed this part, and this part. But does it really fucking matter? Does it really matter if you install the parts or you don't? To some extent, yeah, I think it does. But I honestly think in the long run, it doesn't really matter. If you pull up next to someone and you ask them what they have done to it and they say it's a twin-turbo Coyote, you don't ask, did you do it yourself? You don't ask that. I've seen hack jobs put cars together, and it doesn't mean that it's better than a shop that's done it. If anything, I think a shop doing it typically makes it better, as long as you go to a reputable shop. Also, most people don't have time throughout the week to do a lot of this shit. The reason why I'm able to work on my car now is because it's my full-time job. YouTube is my full-time job. If I had a normal job and I had to be somewhere from 9 to 5, it would be very difficult to find hours where I could rip out the rear end, where I can install a fuel system, where I could diagnose my car. It would be really difficult. Juggling a full-time job, a girlfriend, a wife, if you have kids, that's different as well. Juggling all of that while doing a car is ridiculously hard. People like Boosted Lucky that somehow managed to juggle all of that, hats off to them. You guys don't understand how much time it takes to go through a car, especially on that caliber. You guys don't understand how much time it really takes to do stuff like he's doing, or like a lot of these other content creators are doing. There's content creators, their main job isn't making content. They still go to, maybe they have a better paying job elsewhere and they still do that, or they just have a passion for something else. That's completely fine. You don't have to commit to doing content 24/7. But if they're able to do both, hats off to them. You guys got to seriously put a cork in it when it comes to talking smack. That is really hard. I know he was struggling a little bit early on for Texas 2K. He was kind of late, got the car ready last minute, went there and didn't have time to really do test hits. yeah, the car's gonna have minor problems. Like that's just how cars like go. I can't go and throw the rear end back in this when I get it back and go and run a fast fucking time. That's not gonna work. I'm gonna have to dial in the rest of the car once I get it back. I'm gonna have to adjust my suspension again. I'm gonna have to make sure my ring and pinion is aligned again. I can't just throw shit in and go to the track. So when people were getting mad at him or talking shit to him, it's like, you guys really don't know what it takes to like build a car. There's a reason why I didn't race my car at Texas 2K. Two major reasons. One, the car wasn't ready, and two, I'm not a professional drag racer. I do not know how to drag race, how to launch this car. This car isn't set up for digs. Maybe with the new rear end and when I get my new tires and stuff, maybe it'll be a little bit better, but it's not set up for that. And I could only imagine putting a whole new system together, a whole new setup, and then going to the track at such a large event and trying to test it right then and there. Dude, that's like, oh, I just farted so good. That is just not a headache waiting to happen, but like the whole thing with cars is shit goes wrong all the time. Nothing's gonna be perfect first time. Nothing is. You build a car, you might think it's perfect. There's something you could have done better. There's something you could have improved on. So people need to really back off of people that do build their own cars because it is a different level of difficult. Now, since this car's been coyote swapped, since it's been tuned, I have been the main mechanic, the main guy wrenching on this car since then, and that's been done 3 years ago. I have been the one that's changed out the clutch. I have been the one that has serviced the whole thing, spark plugs, fluids, everything, fuel system, full service. Obviously ripped out the rear end. The only thing I have yet to do to this car is pull the motor, and that's because I don't have a reason to. But I mean, we've changed brakes, K-members, wheels, tires, the rear end, suspension, front and back. Like the whole car has been torn apart except the engine. So sure, whatever, cry me a river. That's the one thing I haven't touched on this car because I have no reason, I have no business doing that. But should you be a bitch and not do it yourself? I don't think it matters, personally. I think it just depends on how you carry yourself. I think ultimately that's like the thing with the car scene. You could do whatever you want. You could put whatever mod you want on your car. You could be a goofball and put a fucking anime livery on your car. It just depends on how you carry yourself. I was at the beach yesterday just on my bike, hanging out with some buddies, and a guy came up to us and just started a conversation. And he has like a 600 LT, it's a blue McLaren, I always see it in SoCal, and if I'm thinking if it's the right one, it's got like 2 exhaust tips just sticking straight up out of the back of the Volcano exhaust. Just something super obnoxious, right? And he came up to us, and he's an old-ass guy. He said he used to be a skater. He sold his company to someone, I forgot who. Probably has just fucking fuck you money because he sold a company to someone massive. Again, I forgot the company they sold it to. Point is, sold his company, has fuck you money, is an old head skater, comes up to us, is just chatting with us. And at first, when I used to see that car, I used to think, wow, that guy's a fucking goober, bro. That guy bought a 600 LT McLaren and did the goofiest exhaust possible to try to get the most amount of attention possible. And then you meet the guy, and he is just kind of a goofy out there character, but he's really cool, really nice, and really chill. And then my whole opinion on the car changed. I'm like, oh, that is literally just him. He is just that guy. So it all just depends on how you carry yourself. Now, if he came up to us and was like, oh, I bet your slow-ass bikes are fucking slow as hell, 200 horsepower, my McLaren makes 700. If he came up to us and was a jackass, then my opinion on him would change. But it all just depends. If you're talking shit about another person who has built his car himself and you have not wrenched on your car, you don't even own a goddamn toolbox. The moment a check engine light comes on, you panic. You have no business talking smack. You have no business running your mouth. No business at all. But if you have a shop build your car because you can afford it, because you don't have the knowledge and don't have the time to learn it, there's nothing wrong with that. I genuinely think there's nothing wrong with that. Like this car. I don't know how to coyote swap a car. I didn't know what parts I needed. Why would I try to do that myself when I could pay somebody? Now, granted, it did take them a long fucking time to do it. But when I could pay someone to do it typically faster and typically easier and probably cheaper because they're going to know exactly what I need. They're going to know exactly what to do. And they're going to be able to get it done. And if anything goes wrong, it's on them. It's almost like an insurance policy. Yes, with modified cars, there is no such thing. If your engine blows because you're being an idiot, most of the time, you're shit out of luck. But if I took this home and the next day it caught fire or something, then that would be on the shop's fault. But with that comes people cutting corners on their own cars. There have been instances, not really on this car, I haven't really done anything bad on this car where I've been like, oh fuck, I fucked that up, I cut corners there. I feel like this car, I've taken my time and I've really gone through it, and I have been really going through it over the last couple months to where I feel really confident in it. Before Texas 2K, I had very little confidence in this car. As of right now, I feel like I could drive this car, obviously not in its current state, but I feel like I could drive this car to Texas and not have any issues because I have gone through the car and found little gremlins here, little gremlins there, this, and that. And I have solved them. I've had little wiring issues at the fuel pump, little wiring issues in the rear. And I've gone through and I've found them. And that just goes to show, even if you take it to a shop, you're still gonna have to touch your car eventually. Eventually, unless you just wanna keep taking it back, you're still gonna have to touch your car. Now, the shop that I had build this car way back when, they are far from me. They are a good hour and a half away from me. So it is not convenient every time there's a little issue for me to call him up and say, hey, can I bring down the car? It's not gonna happen. Like the rear end, last time they installed the gears and they did all that, this time I said, you know what, I'm gonna pull the rear end, I'm gonna find a local shop and they're gonna install it for me. And I went to the same shop that did my Supra diff. They did a great job, never had any issues. So I'm gonna take this rear end, I already did. I took it to them and you know, I saved myself some money. I think the shop charged me last time $1,000 to $2,000, parts included, on doing my rear gears. A little bit of an overcharge, I do think so. I do have a Cortex Racing Watts link and stuff, so there are a few extra things that you have to do. But I took it upon myself this time to do it myself. Pull the rear end, and I called up a shop and I said, hey, if I bring you this unit with the parts, how much is it? They quoted me $550. I said, you know what, I ain't gonna argue with that. It's gonna be a full day's of work for whoever's doing it, so there you go. $550 instead of $2,000. Save myself some money by doing it myself. So there are benefits to doing stuff yourself as well. Also, just because you take your car to a shop doesn't mean they're gonna do good work on your car. The Supra and the WAP are proof of that. Now, no, but disclaimer, the Supra did not burn down because of a shop. The Supra burnt down because of me. I messed up on the car, I did a wiring oopsie, and I caused it accidentally for it to burn down. I believe so. I'm not, again, I don't want to get sued by my insurance company or anything like that, but that's all been settled. That's all in the past anyways. But allegedly, it's my fault. I did it. I believe so. We will never know for sure, but I am taking responsibility for that. However, when I was going to a shop with the Supra and the WAP, and the reason why I stopped going to a shop was because that shop kind of fucking sucked. Let me explain. The Supra did a halfway decent job on, and by halfway decent, I mean it was passable, the car drove, but the next day after dyno, how is it that after dyno, I go home, park the car, wake up the next morning, and there is a puddle of oil under my car, and I call the shop and I say, hey bro, there's a puddle of oil under my car, I think we have an issue. Guy says, no, we don't have an issue. What you need to do is go to AutoZone and get an oil catch pan and just put it under your car. That was his solution. I knew instantly I was in for a fucking treat for the next couple years. And although the guy is a really cool guy, I haven't spoke with him recently, he is a good guy. He was good to me for the most part. Not, at least back then, his business practices weren't the best in that regard. If I was a shop owner and my customer car had just spent $25,000 to get a car built, and the next morning it was pissing oil, I would tell him to pull it back in the shop, we'll put it up on the rack, see where it's leaking, and fix it. That is the correct way to fix an issue, not tell them to go out and buy an oil catch pan so it won't stain their driveway. Super dumb. Super dumb, super dumb. But anyways, that's red flag number one. Red flag number two, the reason why it was pissing oil was because the guy said it was easier than putting dash 8 line on a dash 8 connector to put dash 10 line on a dash 8 connector. It slid over easier. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. That's why it's fucking leaking, mate. You understand? You put too big of a fucking line on a little ass connector. You put big fat fucking connector on a tiny fucking line, it's gonna fucking piss oil because it's not going to seal right, mate. It's not going to seal right, mate. Hopefully my Australian accent really honed it in on how dumb of a statement that is. and many, many things other. But strike number 3, the ultimate strike, was when the WAP was being built. When the WAP was being built, God, I could have like 10,000 strikes. More just came to my head, but whatever. The big one, the nail in the coffin, was when the WAP was being built, we had a fuel issue. The car wasn't getting enough fuel up top, so it was cutting boost. Well, let's go through the fuel system. Fuel pump's new. Fuel injectors are new. Should have enough of both. Fuel line is good. What's the issue? What he thought the issue was the fuel system. So he replaced the whole thing. And I told him, is it a possibility that the wiring isn't the best? He said, nah, I wired it myself. Wiring's fine. It was fine before. I don't see why it's an issue now. Well, I took the car to my actual tuner, the guy that actually tunes the cars, had him look at the wiring, and within 10 minutes he said, this is your fucking problem. You have big fucking wire going to little fucking wire. That no bueno. And issue was fixed. It was from that moment on, after I cussed him out, after he charged me for a full fuel system, the shop guy, not the tuner. The tuner was good boy. I still go to the tuner. The shop guy, it was after that moment, I told him, you're no longer touching my cars. I don't care. That's it. You charged me $1,000 for a full fuel system, didn't fix a goddamn thing, no more touching my cars. So that was that. But that just goes to show there are good shops and there are bad shops. There's an experience with this car. I used to go to a shop that was really local to me. It was super convenient. It was literally 10 minutes, 5 minutes from my parents' house. So you could walk there. It was so great. Used to go to a shop right there. And this is back when it was a 3-valve. So we're talking a good fucking 5 or 6 years ago. And yeah, guy was just completely either out of it or just wanted more money from me or something. This is back before like I was like bigger on YouTube too. So it's not like he was like, oh, this guy's a YouTuber, I could rip him off. No, it was literally, I went to him, had my Pro Charger installed, was supposed to make way more horsepower than the Celine blower, made less power, didn't add up, didn't understand why. Made 50 less wheel horsepower, which is a big difference. You know, it's 50 less horsepower. It's kind of upsetting. So he said, oh, well, it's because, yeah, your 3-valve just can't make any more power. Unless you get fully built heads and port them and all this shit, it just can't make any more power. I thought that was kind of crazy, you know, kind of crazy thing to say. You know, it is a 3-valve, but you mean to tell me 450 wheel horsepower is the fastest these heads can flow? And he was like, yeah, you need to buy these heads. I was like, okay, whatever, man. I'll let you know when I come back. Obviously, never came back. Called up the shop that built this. He said, no. Bring it in, do this fuel system, and you'll make more power. I don't even think I had to do the fuel system. I don't know. Point is, took it to him. It made 150 more horsepower. We changed like one thing, but I didn't have to do heads. I never did heads on the 3-valve, and I made 770 at one point with stock heads. And the guy said 450 was the max. If he could have seen that car the moment it blew up, I'm sure he would have been impressed. But yeah, there are good shops and there are bad shops. So ultimately, though, just comes down to, like I said, how you carry yourself. Don't be a fucking jackass either way. If you mod your own car, congratulations. Good for you. You know your car. You've put your parts on it. And I do think it's a little bit more of a brag. Yeah, sure. Like, oh, I did that shit myself. You know, I built that car myself. I made it faster myself. It's kind of cool with this car, with the ZR1, because everything I've done to it so far, I've done myself. I pulled the exhaust and had fun with the cats. I installed the intake. I installed the flex sensor. I have a few more parts coming that I'm going to install. I installed the bushings. I lowered it. It's pretty fun. You know, it's a pretty good time. Eventually, maybe if I do something crazy, there will be a time where I can't do anything or something myself. But I plan on doing everything myself to this car because I'm confident enough in myself now to do that. But it just goes to show, you know, does it make sense for you? Does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. But if you have a garage, you want to learn, then do it yourself, you know? There's YouTube videos on most things. If not, there's forums or there's instruction manuals. Like a lot of stuff you could do yourself. Some things that seem scary, literally take it step by step and just do it yourself. Certain things I still won't do, obviously, ring and pinions. I'm not going to try that. There's a whole bunch of stuff with backlash and making sure things are the right torque. And if you over torque them, it's going to fuck up and strip your bearings and shit. Just, yeah, don't, you know, if it's something like that, or building an engine, I understand. But installing a supercharger, I feel like most of you guys could install a supercharger. It's not that hard. Doing a clutch, I feel like most of you guys can do a clutch. Just take it simple. If something don't feel right, don't force it. That goes for putting stuff in or taking stuff out. If it feels like it ain't coming out easily, don't yank on it. There's something wrong. If it feels like it ain't screwing in easily, don't fucking force that bolt in. You're gonna strip it or you're gonna crack something. That's the worst thing ever. You can destroy things by doing that. Just take it slow, take it simple, step by step, check your steps, check your torque, and you guys can do everything yourself. But yeah, that's ultimately how I feel about it. I think if you want to do stuff yourself, go for it. If you don't want to do stuff yourself, don't do it. Either way, things can go wrong. Can't rely on shops too much anymore. And, you know, we all make mistakes. Like I said, I made a big-ass mistake on the Supra. My own fault. Shit happens. Just thought I was making a wise decision by relocating my fuse box away from something because I didn't want it to short out. I relocated it. It still shorted out. Shit happens, you know? That's exactly what I think happened. I can't prove it, so if my insurance company is watching this, it might have just happened on its own. I might have put that fuse box back in the OEM configuration. But point is, we'll never know. So, yeah. Ultimately, just goes about how you carry yourself. If you carry yourself respectable, people are going to respect you. If you carry yourself like a jackass, people are going to think you're a jackass. So, do with that knowledge what you want. I don't know how long this video is. I can go on and on and on about this topic because this is a topic that I have a lot of information on. I'll tell you guys another short story in the meantime because we are only at 20 minutes. I don't want to keep you guys here too long. But here's proof that even working on your own cars isn't always the best idea. I won't say names. I used to know a guy. He was building a twin-turbo S550. I actually raced him at one point. If you go way back, you can find his car. But I raced him. Car ran decent. I think he beat me on like one pass, but the rest of the passes, my car was more consistently faster. I don't know if it was with this setup though. I don't remember what setup my car had. It might have been with the Coyote, but again, I don't remember. This is a good 3-4 years ago, maybe even longer. Anyways, he was building a twin turbo Coyote. It was an auto, and he was doing it himself. And I remember one time he called me and asked me for help. So me and Eric pulled up to his house because he was having trouble with something. He was trying to pull the trans or something. And his flex plate or something was stuck. But he had his wheels off. And he had his power cables running through his wheel well. And he had his power cable cut open and exposed from it rubbing on his wheels. A power cable, not a ground, a red, thick, probably 0 gauge power cable was rubbed through completely. I mean, you saw just copper. And it was like, we asked him, we were like, hey, what do you got there? What's that little gremlin right there? And he's like, oh yeah, we have to figure out a way to run it because we have to run it this way because of the turbos, and we had to relocate this. And I was just like, that's all fine and dandy, but that is a fucking serious issue. And he was just, oh, it's not a big deal. Nothing's happened yet. And I remember Eric and I just kind of looked at each other like, oh my God, all right. We can't help him if you don't want to be helped. So yeah, just because you work on your own cars doesn't mean that they're built all too well either. So if you hear someone say that they built it themselves, be skeptical. I've seen many cars built by people where they have issues. My Supra, once again, is a good example of one. We have to keep that in mind. I am not perfect, but that just goes to show, just because you do something yourself doesn't make it better, you know? You ain't a master fucking mechanic. You ain't a master tech, unless you are, in which case, congratulations. But yeah, there are many instances where you just see something and you're like, oh God, okay, all right, that's not how I would have routed that. Oh, the fuel line going right by the headers? Oh God, I mean, you know what? It's your car, you know? You run it how you want, but yeah, that's a story of cars, right? Stuff goes wrong, stuff goes right. Can never be too right for too long, though. So, but as for the Mustang, I'm expecting the rear end to be done by Wednesday, maybe Thursday the latest, unless they're really busy, Friday. But I will be going to Texas Friday morning, going back to Texas. As you can tell, I got my cowboy boots on. Going back to Texas for a drift and drag. So if you didn't meet me at the Texas 2K or the Texas 2K after party or the last drift and drag that was back in October, now's your time. You can come out and say hi. I will be there. with a bunch of other content creators. So say hi to all of us. We can all cuddle up and hug, little hug session. But yeah, I will be in Texas. Hopefully I can get the car back together before then, because I don't really want to leave it up on the lift. I don't really mind. Like, it's not going to do anything, but I'll be back Sunday morning. So it's not, again, I'm not gone for that long, but I want to have the car back together. So we'll have to see. But anyways, there you go. Should you take your car to the shop? Should you build it yourself? That's up to you. To some people, it makes more sense to just take it to a shop. And to some that really want to just know their car and are patient and careful and have the time for fuck-ups, because, oh boy, I guarantee Alma could tell you, the amount of times I've told her something's going to only take 30 minutes to an hour and it ends up taking a whole fucking afternoon, more than not, that's what ends up happening. Nowadays, I've learned, I don't even tell her a time. I just tell her, oh, I'm installing this part. I'll see you tomorrow. That's kind of what I tell her now. Like the rear end. On paper, it should go in sort of easily. I have an idea, but I don't fucking know. We're gonna find out when I get that shit. So, anyways, let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Built, paid someone to build it. Which one do you prefer? Does it matter? I don't think so. It's kind of like auto versus manuals. Doesn't really matter. Matter. Which brings us to our next episode. Come back next time for auto versus manuals. Anyways, between two cars, deuces.